pilot project is examining the effect of a 4-day school week on Georgia 8th graders. And for this project, I use data from a pseudonymous school in a district. All of the names have been changed, as it would have it. But anyway, I think it's really interesting, particularly for you, a group of middle school teachers, and see what we can discuss. My research questions for the project: does the implementation of the amended calendar affect the math CRCT performance of 8th grade students in the Northwest Georgia County? The school and system that we'll be talking about 3 years ago, they moved to the 4-day week. And, does it have an effect on student performance? There are a lot of different reasons that systems cite for making this change to the amended calendar. Most of them have to do with budgetary savings and whatnot. But does it really make a difference? And that was the question that I looked at, and specifically looked at 8th graders because that's one of the money grades for the state, right? 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. And looked at math because that's one of the most clear-cut, I guess, subtests that you can measure. Reading, there are a lot of different variables, but math, not only is there straight computation, but there's just a little bit less margin of error with the research too. It's either right or wrong. Math CRCT achievement data from 8th graders at Lexington Middle School in Rockbridge County. This is the pseudonym for the school and the system that I use for the data. I look at 3 years of data from the traditional calendar, 2008 through 2010, and then 3 years after the change. Hopefully that longer chunk of time can really not only establish more of a pattern of student achievement on the normal 5-day week, but also on the amended calendar, and kind of give a little bit more time to even out any discrepancies from year to year, whether it's different subgroup populations or just flukes in testing and whatnot. Let the numbers balance out. So a little bit of background about the 4-day week. It was first implemented during the 1930s. Again, it kind of came out as a product of the Great Depression, all about money and savings. And it really reappeared in American schools in the 1970s as a product of the energy crisis. Everybody was looking to cut back, and funding was hard to come by. And again, in recent years, the late 1990s, early 2000s, it started making an appearance again. Currently, there are 21 states with public school districts operating on the 4-day week. And there are, I believe it's 6 other states where it's legal and already approved by the state government. However, they just don't have schools operating on that system right at this moment. And there are also several different countries where the 4-day week is pretty popular. Britain, France, I believe it's Spain are some of the ones that are big proponents of it. There are different models that you see within the 4-day week. A lot of systems do kind of winter-only 4-day week, and that is a lot of in extreme climates. When it's really, really cold during the winter months, they can save on that extra day of heating and cooling costs. Some schools do it in every other week, and a lot of school systems are looking at doing it every other week or once a month and using that extra day as a professional development day. So the teachers still come. So that's an interesting model that you see. A lot of the new research is talking about that and how teachers are having this awesome opportunity to collaborative plan. The system that I looked at in Rockbridge County, Lexington Middle School, they do not have that. It's just 4 days a week, about 7:40 to 3:40. Right? So it all comes down to the savings is why it has really become popular. Not only are there savings with energy, transportation, substitutes, and again, I mentioned the professional development because that is a time that is available during the week, but it's not always taken advantage of because, again, the funding piece is just not there. Rockbridge County, the system that I looked at, according to U.S. Census data in 2012, only 68% of the county has a high school diploma. 20% of the county lives below the poverty line, and only 7% of adults in the county have a bachelor's degree or higher. So this just kind of gives you a little bit of information and background about the educational climate in the county and the fact that the system was even moving up a little bit further. Rockbridge County School System, Lexington Middle School, there are about 130 students on average in the 8th grade. Again, that number changes from year to year. They consistently struggle to meet AYP indicators. Bless you. In years past. Bless you. they consistently struggled. There were different things that were put in place to kind of help teachers and students with instructional coaching and whatnot. But they had struggled, and they were looking for something to do. And again, I restate the date time frames where the data was compared, the 3 years window. The most recent, one of the reasons that I chose this kind of 6-year time period was because the GPS, the Georgia Standard Formal Word Standards, everything was kind of evened out. So this was kind of a, instructionally one of the least fluctuating times, I guess, to look at student data. The methodology, it was a causal comparative design. Is there a correlation, right? Was there a relationship? When the calendar changed, did student achievement change? I looked at some basic descriptive statistics, which is stuff that the middle school kids are doing in math now. The mean score, standard deviation, and then looked at the t-test to kind of really compare and see if some of the differences were significant or not. Most of the analyses, I looked at just straight numbers of students in each of the categories, and then the percent of students as well, just to kind of show you some different ideas. And I apologize that this chart is a little bit small on your handout. You see it's a little bit larger. But the results from the traditional years that I looked at, the average number of students tested on the traditional calendar is around 140. You have 139, 143, 145. And again, those numbers change just a little bit. But the actual, if you look at like the percentage of students who did not meet expectations, and we'll see this data in another way in just a minute, but it's right around 60%. 60% of the kids are not meeting expectations for grade level understanding of math in the 8th grade, just consistently, 58, 63, 57%. And then the mean score, kids have to make at least an 800 in order to pass. You guys know that. The average score of these students is considerably below. I mean, 795, 793, that's missing 2-3 questions below the cutoff. So they were really looking for something to do. And nobody, we'll see in just a minute, nobody makes the change to the 40-week, in order to really ramp up instructional, quality. But it is interesting to see if it does have an effect. If you look at the traditional calendar results for those 3 years, looking at just the percentage of students, again, the do not meet, you see 2012, 2013, I mean, that's a little too close to even for anybody, I think. But in the meets and exceeds, those are together. The meets and exceeds, it was declining, holding steady. We're always looking for improvement. That's something that we hear, always wanting to get better. And they're not improving. So what's going to make a difference? Is there a difference after they change the calendar? So 2011, 2012, 2013, you notice that the mean score for students increases dramatically. 809, 807. But one of the things to notice too, you've got the percentage of students who did not meet expectations, but those were around 60% in the traditional calendar data that we looked at. 36%, 43%. But look at the number of students tested too. It went from 140 students to 113, 122, 132. So do these percentages, does it balance out? And what might be some of the reasons for that? Looking at a bar graph to kind of compare, 2011, that first year on the calendar change, look at the difference. That's something that, you want to see much more of. And even the meets and exceeds categories in the later years, it's stable. It has decreased as far as percentage goes, but it's something more that people would want to see. Of course, again, everybody's always looking towards improvement. I don't know if you guys saw the results from the international assessment that came out earlier this week, where America was compared with all the other countries, and we were stagnant. Is this system going to kind of stay stagnant? It's hard to tell. And with this project, I didn't do any predictive analyses because there's so many variables, and we'll talk about that in just a second, that kind of stand in the way. You can't control for everything. If you look at the whole 6 years for this system, Lexington Middle School, look at the percentage of students versus the number of students, just because percentages and numbers, they can kind of lie. You can get a misunderstanding over the course, when you're trying to determine which one makes a bigger difference, which one demonstrates an effect or not. For me, one of the things to look at was just longitudinally, you can tell, look at it, sorry, can you tell where the calendar change happened? Is it, when you look at just the percentage of students, notice how everything almost, reverses completely. And again, the number of students, you see a steady increase in the number of students who are exceeding, and look at the decrease of do not meet students. The question for me becomes, what else was happening at the school? What else was happening at the system during that time? The number of students who tested dropped dramatically. I think it was like a 26% decrease in the number of students tested on the math CRCT from 2010 to 2011. Other stuff that was going on in the state of Georgia at that time, I think that Lexington Middle School became a school of choice, so kids got to move into other schools. Another thing, the CRCT now, the modified CRCT for kids whose IQ and disability kind of met that cutoff level. Maybe some of those students who traditionally did not meet expectations were able to demonstrate their understanding in other ways. But there's more than just looking at the numbers here. When you look at the statistics and look at the t-tests, because of the differences in student enrollment, because of the differences in the years as they go, it turns out there's nothing statistically significant about any of this data at all.